Hi everyone, my name is Dina. I'm back today to show you my ring portion of my Thoughts of Spring set. So today I'm going to show you how to do the ring as well as how to use a ring mandrel if you're not familiar with that. So go down below, there'll be a button that you can click on that says show more. In that you'll see a list of supplies, so gather those supplies up as well as a bead on it board. Meet me back and I'll show you the first step. Alright, so I have all my supplies laid out. The only thing I don't have at the moment is my ring mandrel out. It's off to the side, and I will show you how to use that in a following clip. So stay tuned if you don't know how to use one of those. I'll teach you how to use it. So the first thing that you want to do is on your RounTrios, there are obviously 3 holes in it, or else it would have a different name than a RounTrio. So with those holes, what you want to make sure is that all of your holes are empty. Now I have this one as an outlier because one of these holes is actually slightly clogged. And yeah, it's not very easily seen. But let me see if I can get it to where, no, you still can't really see it. But anyways, this hole right here on the outside of this RounTrio is clogged just slightly. To get rid of that clog, sometimes all you need to do is just move your needle, kind of wiggle it through a little bit, and then you should be able to just kind of punch it out. A lot of times in the process of making these beads, there it goes, the coating can get stuck in the holes sometimes. And so you always want to make sure that you check your multi-hole beads and make sure that there are open holes. Oh, you can see it right there. Now you can see 3 holes in that bead. So you just want to make sure all of your beads are like that before you start beading. Sometimes you can fix it halfway through the bead. If you're in the middle of your beadwork and you find out that one of them is clogged, sometimes you can fix it. Other times it's just not fixable, or there's an actual hole that's completely missing. It happens every once in a while. That's just part of the process of making the beads. So double check all those before you start. And then after that, I've got a wingspan worth of my dragon thread size 8 in the green today. The sample ring that I made, the one in pink and white, I ended up using the white thread on that one. I really don't suggest using white, only because if you do get this ring wet, which I don't suggest to do that very often either, but if you do, there's a potential that it might turn the white color more of kind of like a grayish color, so it might kind of look dingy after a little while. So I don't really suggest to use white thread on rings, at least. So I've got the green thread on this one. I've got a wingspan worth of thread, so it's a little over 5 feet of thread. That's going to vary depending on what size of ring that you're going to be making. So if you have a smaller ring size than what I wear, which I usually wear somewhere between a 7.5 and an 8, and I like to wear my rings on my ring finger. Every once in a while I'll make one for my middle finger, but I like to wear most of my rings on my ring fingers. So that's about a 7.5 to 8, depending on how much water retention I have that day. And so if you're doing that, then you'll need about a little over 5 feet of thread. If it's smaller than that, you'll need a little less. If it's larger than that, you'll need a little bit more. Alrighty, so to start off, we're going to start off with going through one of the RounTrios in one of the outer holes of the RounTrio. And I'm going to make this to where you can see what I'm doing here. There we go. So now it's focused in a little bit better. So I'm going through one of the outer holes of the RounTrio. And then I'm going to pick up one of my lighter colors of my 11-Os. So I'm going to start off, I said lighter color. I'm starting off with my darker color of my 11-O. And then pick up a second RounTrio and then do this and another 11-O. So do this until you have all 4 of your RounTrios with 11-Os preceding it. And then, so that's what it should look like. And then you let this fall towards the end of your thread. Just leave a little bit of a tail so that way you have enough to tie here in a second, which is what we're going to do. So I'm just going to make a little small knot. Just went through the knot once. Then I'm going to go through the loop that I just created. And then hopefully without causing too much of an issue, I'm going to, and of course it's not going to work for me right now. Hopefully not around that seed bead. Okay, good, it worked. So now you should have something that looks similar to that, where you have your 11-O's and your round trios all together. So since we started off with a round trio, I'm going to go ahead and go through that round trio that we added first. My stomach is growling like crazy. I think I need to eat something. And then I'm going to proceed through that first 11-O. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add some beads in here in the center portion. This is completely up to you. You can leave it completely open. I just felt like it kind of stabilized the ring a little bit better and gave it a little bit more dimension. So you don't have to do this portion, but I went ahead and I did this. And I'm looking at my ring as I'm doing this, so I know which ones I'm supposed to add. Okay, so we're going to pick up one of the darker colors of your 11-O's. And then we're going to also pick up the lighter portion of the 15. So I've got my two 15s here, I've got my three 11s here, and then my 8s are down here on this bottom. So I've got an 11-O and a 15. And I'm going to go back through that 11-O that we're currently coming out of, and then proceed through, if you can, which mine didn't, but if you can, proceed through the next round trio. And we're just going to do this. Oh, nope, I did that wrong. Pardon me. I did that wrong. Okay. Scratch that. We need to go back down the 11-O that we just added. So that way it keeps that 15 as more of a peak. So I apologize for that. But go back down the 11-O that we just added, skipping over that 15. And then when you go back through, now go back through that 11-O that's in that original round portion where we added the round trios to it. And when you pull that in, now your bead should look something similar to this, where you have that 15 that's more in the center there, and you've got the 11-O in between the two 11-Os. So then move on through to the next 11-O. So I'll do that again because that was quite confusing because I messed up. We're picking up an 11 and a 15. Pull that down to the end of the thread. Go back through that 11-O that we just added. And then on the way back up, you go back through the 11-O and the original ring, or original round, and then go through the trio if you can make it right away. So that's what it's supposed to look like. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and continue on with this portion, because it's pretty simple after we get this part done. So I'm adding the 11 and the 15. And then go back through your 11 that you just added. Go back through the 11 and the next round trio and the first original round portion. And, whoops, gotta get the trio also. Okay, and then my needle actually went through the next 11-O also, which is fine because that's the last one that we need to go through. So picking up your last 11 and your last 15, bring those down, then go back through that 11 that you just added, plus the 11 in the original round. Go ahead and proceed through the round trio. If you can, you may have to do this individually. It's perfectly fine. Okay. And now all we're going to do is just something very simple. We're going to go through that next 11-O that's sitting there. which is the first 11 that we went through. To add this portion, we're going to go up the 11 that's sitting there also. And then we're going to go through the 15 that we added. And all we're going to do on this little portion is just connect our 15s. So the biggest thing you want to make sure is that you're not moving or allowing your 15s to go in a different direction. How do I say that right? When you're moving around your inner portion like this, when you've got things that are just kind of flopping around and you can't really see where things are going. And I think I actually connected onto something that I shouldn't have. How did I do that? Okay, well, I'll have to go backwards and figure out what I did with that one. I'm not sure what I did, but what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to connect all 4 of your 15s. So my next 15 is actually going to be the one that's stuck, which I'll take this out and before I get to the next clip. And that you want to make sure that you're going in the same direction. You don't want your bead to be facing it in a weird way. And sometimes just depending on how your beads face, I think I know what happened. But sometimes, depending on how your beads face and everything, sometimes they just don't look like they're in the correct direction. You just want to make sure that you try to keep that from happening. So all this, that's what happened, is that when I went back down this bead right here, that 11-0, it wrapped around that previous thing. Okay, so I'll get that fixed in the next clip. And try to see if I can show you what I'm talking about here. Because if I were to go through this bead like that, that is in the correct direction. Right, like that. But if I were to accidentally turn it to where it's like this, then all of a sudden it's still in the right direction, but your thread is wrapped around. I will take this out and get that fixed, and then I'll come back and I'll show you a little bit better what I'm talking about.
Want a monthly dose of inspiration while stocking up on your beading supplies? Potomac Beads Treasure Box is a monthly subscription where you can save up to 60% off new and exciting materials. Every month, you'll receive an assortment of unique and exclusive beads in a variety of colors and shapes. Whether you're a beginner or an accomplished beader, the Treasure Box will inspire you to create unique projects for yourself and to gift to others. Unleash your creativity with a Treasure Box subscription. Visit PotomacBeads.com/subscriptions today or click on the link below in the description to get links to get back to our website.
Okay, so my issue was fixed. So take 2 on this portion. So we're still going through that 15-0. I'm going in a counterclockwise direction right now. So what I was trying to say earlier is that you want to continue through the next 15-0 in that same direction. You want to make sure that you're not twisting this 15-0 to where it could be an issue later on. So just make sure that you're going through that 15-0 in the same direction that it should be sitting in. And then hook on to the next 15-0. Sometimes just twisting it around and everything can just make it too tight, and sometimes they don't sit right. And then sometimes you don't notice it at all. So it really just kind of depends. And then completing through this by going through that first 15-0 one more time. And I'm going to go through this round, go through these 4 seed beads again, and then I'll get you to the next portion and show you that next step. So we're going to continue through these 4 seed beads one more time. That's 1. It's just to kind of tighten everything up and make it look a little bit nicer. And then 2. And 3. And then 4, and I'm trying to go back through that first one again too. With the size 8 thread, that's probably all the type of amount of thread that you're going to be able to get through 15s is about 2, sometimes 3 passes, and then that'll be it. Alright, to get set up for the next step, we're going to continue back through that 11-0, going upwards, and then continue through the 11-0 that's up here, going from left to right. Continue through that RounTrio. And then now we want to change directions with our thread and go through the second hole of that RounTrio. And then now you're set up for the next step. So go ahead and get that portion done and meet me back and I'll show you the next step. Alright, so now we're set up for the second step. Second step is going to be pretty simple. We're going to pick up one of our middle color of the 11-0s, one of the darker of the 15s, and then another of the middle color of the 11-0. So I've got 11, 15, and 11. And all we're doing is just going through the middle hole of the next RounTrio. And that is all you do on this step. So this step is pretty simple, so we're going to just go ahead and complete all 4 sides. And then I'll get you set up for using or putting beads into that third hole of the RounTrio. And there we go. Alright, so to get set up for the third hole, again, I'm just kind of cheating to see what I want to do. To get you set up for that third hole, we're going to continue through the 11 and the 15, and then come out of the 15. And then that gets you set up for the next round. So go ahead and complete that, and I'll show you the next one. Alright, so when you're caught up with that, our next step is going to be adding our third color and our second color of the 11-0s, one of each. We're coming out of that middle 15. We're going to go to the next RounTrio and the outermost hole of the next RounTrio. On the other side, we're going to pick up the second color, then the third color, so it's the opposite of what we just put on. We're coming out of that RounTrio. We're going to go through the 15-0 from the previous step. And then this portion, that's all you do on this part. So then it's the third color, then the second color, through the third hole of the RounTrio, and then the opposite, the second, and then the third, through the 15. Nope, just the 15, not the 11-0. Okay, so third, then second. I only have a few more of these to add, and then I'll show you the second half of this step, because we're not done yet with adding beads. And then, okay, so now I'm adding my last 2 sets of the beads. I'm going to proceed through those first 2 11s that I just added after the 15, so the third and the second color. There we go. And then I'm going to add some color or some beads around the RounTrio, and that is going to be one of the second, 2 of the third, and 1 of the second color. So now we're adding 4 beads. And we're coming out of those 2 11-0s that we added. Then we're going to go straight through the 2 11-0s on the other side. In between, so sitting on top of those 15s, we're now going to add one of our 8s. And this is out of focus again. Let me get this focused again. Much better. So we're going to add an 8 and go through those two 11s. And then on this side, we're adding the second, 2 of the third color, and then the second color. If you don't want this many colors, you don't have to use this many colors. I just thought it looked more like a sunflower, having the different colors of yellows and everything in it. And then I'm proceeding through those other 2 seed beads. Then on top of the 15, and between the 2 sets of the 11s, we're putting an 8-0. And now on this round, once we get all of these beads set up, then I would like for you to go through this at least one more time, this outer round. And that's just for stability. With it being a ring, you're going to be knocking up against stuff and tugging on things, or it's going to be tugging on things and potentially catching on some things. It sits pretty flat on my finger, so it really doesn't catch on too much, but there's still that potential that those 8-0s that are on either side right here may catch on to something. So having at least 2 passes of thread through those 8-0s is probably going to be helpful to make sure that things don't break easily on you. So after I get these last couple of beads in here, that's what I'm going to end up doing. I keep getting caught on my pliers that are way over here off to the side. They like to be a magnet of some sort, seems like. Then I'm adding my last 8-0. Now all I'm going to do, like I said, I'm going to go through this at least one more time. I'm not going to do that on screen. I'll let you do that on your own as well. So then what you'll end up wanting to do is figure out which 8-0 that you're going to use for part of your ring band, because I used a bunch of 8-0s on the ring band. So figure out which 8-0 that you want to be on one side of your ring band, and that's where I'll meet you back, and we'll start the band at that point. Okay, so since you have at least 2 passes of your thread through all the outer 8-0s, if you want, you can always do a third pass as well. It's not going to hurt anything. We're now coming out of one of the 8-0s that I'm going to use for part of my band. To do the band, we are going to pick up 2 8s. I'm coming out, before we do that, we need to cut off this thread. I knew I was going to forget to do that. So before you do that, if you haven't cut off your starter thread yet, go ahead and do that, because that's going to be on the underside of the ring, and it may be a little difficult to get to it. If you feel like you could probably get to it without cutting it off right now, then that's fine. You can do it later. But I feel like I'm going to have issues with it, especially when things are a little bit further away from my face, when I'm trying to record. And sometimes, like right now, I'm kind of missing the thread. I get it every once in a while, and then I kind of miss it. But that's okay. So you just want to burn down your starter thread just to kind of get it out of the way, and that way it's a little bit easier to get to it at this point. So then add your 2 8-0s onto your thread. We're coming out of this 8-0. I'm just going to circle around it, so go back in the same direction. And then these 2 beads will sit kind of like a V on top of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back up the left-hand bead. So this one is kind of like herringbone in a way. I never know what to call this stitch. In a previous video, I called it my modified herringbone stitch, because I have no idea what to call it, because it seems like different people call it different things. So I call it modified herringbone. So we're coming out of the left-hand stitch. I added 2 more beads, 2 more 8-0s. Go down the right-hand stitch. Bead. Right-hand bead. So now they sit like this. Now we need to get back out to where we're coming out of the second 8-0 sitting there. So we're going to go back through the original 8-0. So just the one 8-0. And then we're going to go back up the 2 that are sitting there on the left. Now this next part is what you're going to end up doing for the rest of the band. pick up 2 more 8/0s, go down just that one 8/0 on the right, so just the one, and now we need to get ourselves to where we're coming out of the topmost 8/0 on the left hand side. So we're coming out of the second 8/0 down here on the right, so this is second from the top, so we're going to go straight over to the second one on the left and then go up those 2 beads there. And that's all you do for this stitch. We'll come back after we finish the bands, we'll come back and we'll reinforce the band a few times, and then that'll give it a little bit more stability also. What I ended up doing on my ring, on the pink one here, I ended up doing 21 rows of this. Now that made a ring that was about the size of a 7.5 size ring. And since then, I measured it again right before I started recording, and it's actually about somewhere closer to an 8, size 8 ring now. And that's only because when you're using thread like this, your thread is going to stretch. So just be cautious of that. If you want to do something similar to what I did, make your ring just slightly tighter than what you're comfortable with wearing. Try it on a couple of times, and then, like I said, over time it's going to stretch out a little bit, which is perfectly normal for it to do. So do whatever size that you need as far as how many rows and everything. Like I said, mine was 21 rows and it was about a 7.5 inch ring. I'm going to get probably about another 10 or 12 rows on here, and then I'm going to show you how to use the ring mandrel, so that way you can gauge, if you have one of those at home, you can gauge on where you need to stop in order to make your ring. Meet you back in a second. Okay, so I've finished 17 rows so far of the stitch on the band. So now I'm going to show you how to use the ring mandrel. So if you have one of these at home, these are amazing if you like to make any type of rings whatsoever. Now this is a plastic mandrel, so I don't use this for any type of wire working or anything like that, because sometimes if you are to hammer your ring when you're using wire, then sometimes this can crack, and then your sizing and stuff like that could potentially be off some. So I just use this strictly for doing like beadwork and things like that, like I'm doing right now. And or if I have a ring at home that is sized in a weird way or something like that, then I can use this to figure out what the size is. So I have the 17 rows on here, so I'm going to show you how to use this. So let's just say you're looking for a size 5 on your ring. What you want to do is you want to wrap your product around the mandrel and make sure it's tight, but you want to make sure that your product is in the middle, where the number that you're wanting to go by is in the middle of your product. See how I have it lined up according to the beads, the 2C beads on the left and then the one on the right. I have the number 5 right smack dab in the middle of it. That's where your size 5 ring will be at. If you have it to where it is not in the center, like you feel like you're measuring down here on the bottom for 6.5 or 5.5, you have to make sure that you move this to that 5.5, and then that'll help you gauge how many more beads that you have to add. So hopefully that made sense. But on these type of rings, since they're very flat or somewhat flat on the inside, this is how you measure it. When it's a different type of ring, or if you're using metal and things like that, there's different ways depending on what type of metal that you're using, on how to measure where your ring size actually is. But on these type of projects, that's what you want to do, is make sure that your product or your project is smack dab in the middle of where your number 5 is, or your number whatever you want to do. So like I said, I wear somewhere around a 7.5 to an 8. So I still have several more rows of bead work to go. If you're wanting to do that 5, I have 17 rows on there right now. You probably only need to add one more row, and then you'll be done with it. So I'm going to continue on to get my 7.5 inch. So I've got, I think, 4 more rows or so to do, and then I'll meet you back and I'll show you how to finish off the ring. Okay, so now I have my 21 rows on there. So I'm going to do a double check on myself. So there again, I want a 7.5 inch. So I'm going to put everything to where that 7.5 is in the middle of my product. And then I'm going to close it up some. and that looks to be just about right. So now I'm going to put the mandrel off to the side. And to close it off, our thread is still coming out of the left-hand bead. I'm going to wrap it around to where you see the other side of your ring. So this is the underside of the ring, and this is where a couple of steps ago I suggested to go ahead and burn off your starter thread. If you haven't done that yet, now is the time, because it will be a little bit harder to get to it here in a few seconds when you get this other half of the ring band attached. So we're coming out of the left-hand side, and it's pretty simple. All we're going to do is go to that bead on the opposite side of the ring where we started, go from the left to the right of that bead, and then when you pull that down close, you're going to get everything attached in this fashion. So now you just need to go back down the right hand bead from your band, and then pull it tight, and then now that's attached. Now go back through that at least, or do that one more time. So go back up the left hand bead. Okay, sorry, I hit the camera again. Left hand bead, go through the middle bead on the ring portion, and then go ahead and go down the right hand bead. I'm going to go down just a couple of beads this time. Wherever you come out, go through the left hand bead directly across from it. I just went down 2 of them that time. And then go back through your center bead again. And then now your ring is just about complete. The only thing that I would suggest to do now is go completely down the right hand side of your band. And when you get to the other side of the ring, you'll want to go through that center bead again. So right here, go through that just like we did on the other side. This is another reason why we're using 8/0s, because you can put a lot of passes of thread through an 8/0 and hopefully not break the bead. Then you just go back up through the left hand side. And this is just completely up to you. I usually do this about 3 more times. So, which is one reason why I suggest to have so much thread. Because right now I have probably a good maybe 2.5 feet left on my thread, or of the amount that I have left over that I started off with. And I started off with about 5 feet or so. But since I go through these beads so many times to make sure that this is going to stay together, it uses up a lot of thread. So I'm just going to continue doing that. I'll probably finish it off. I'll go through this at least 1 more time, maybe 2 more times, and then I'll be done. All you have to do after that is just make some half-hitch knots, and your ring will be complete. So let me go ahead and just show you how to do that real quick. A little half-hitch knot. All you want to do is you want to find one of the bridge threads that's sitting right here, or wherever you choose to do it. Put your needle underneath the thread there. Make yourself a little loop. Go through that loop. Pull it down close to the product, not all the way down yet. And then you're going to go through that loop 1 more time. And then you pull tight, and now you have a knot. So you could do that too. You can go ahead and knot now, and then knot now, and then do a couple more rounds and then knot again, and that'll make it more stable also. So other than that, now you have a completed ring. Thanks so much for watching my Thoughts of Spring ring tutorial. Again, this is part of a set. We're going to have the ring portion that we made just now, as well as earrings and a necklace. So stay tuned for those videos if they haven't made it out just yet. Again, don't forget to like the video as well as subscribe to PotomacBeads YouTube page, and you'll be notified for other different videos that they come out with. Also, don't forget to put any of your different color choices and things like that that you choose to do as far as your flower choice colors. Put those pictures on the Facebook page for PotomacBeads, because we always love to see all the different color combinations. Thanks again for watching, everyone. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video, because I know it's going to be a good one.